Program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Tonight on Politics Now, Roe v. Wade overturned. A landmark decision by the Supreme Court puts abortion rights in the hands of the states.
We're ready to be first, and we have the broad support we need.
The push to be first. Nevada Democrats make their case to the DNC to jump to the front of the primary line. And under fire, federal agents seize the phone of Nevada's GOP leader as they investigate the 2020 election.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. Nearly 50 years of federal abortion rights are over. Friday, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade, allowing states to now ban abortions. The 6-3 majority ruling was expected. It's a case that came out of Mississippi. It's the first time a right first granted by the Supreme Court has subsequently been taken away. The ruling is a huge victory for pro-life groups across the country, a major setback for the pro-choice movement, and protests are expected. They've already been happening. Nevada's Constitution, meanwhile, does have protections for abortions for women. After the Supreme Court ruling, President Joe Biden urged voters to take action.
It's a realization of an extreme ideology and a tragic error by the Supreme Court, in my view. The court has done what it has never done before: expressly take away a constitutional right that is so fundamental to so many Americans that had already been recognized. The court's decision to do so will have real and immediate consequences. This is extreme and dangerous path the court is now taking us on.
Meanwhile, Nevada's other Democratic leaders in the Senate and Congress and across the state released statements strongly against the verdict. That is Governor Sisolak you're seeing there. You'll remember last month he released a statement saying nothing would change, again because abortion protections exist in Nevada's Constitution. Elsewhere around the country, though, many states have already signed laws to outlaw abortion. 26 states are expected to restrict abortion moving forward. In other political news, the push is on to make Nevada first in line to pick a Democratic presidential candidate. Officials made their case to the DNC earlier this week.
As a diverse, accessible, and union-strong battleground state, Nevada represents the bright future of the Democratic Party. We're ready to be first, and we have the broad support we need to bring historic change to this primary process.
Nevada Democrats have been pushing to jump ahead of Iowa and New Hampshire and highlighted, as you heard there, our state's diversity as one reason why. On July 8th, the DNC Rules Committee will vote on whether to change the order. Then a full vote from the Democratic National Committee will come about August 6th. Last year, the Nevada legislature voted to change from caucuses to primaries after a lot of folks complained caucuses just took too long. So this change from the Democrats, this would only affect the Democratic primary position for the choice of a president in 2024. The Republican primary is still going to be fourth for the GOP, but first in the West. Nevada Democrats, they've been united in their desire to make Nevada first in the process for choosing a president. Clark County Commissioner William McCurdy was part of this week's presentation.
Well, Commissioner, you've just gotten back from Washington, and you were there to talk to the DNC and try and present the case of why Nevada should be first. We've spoken about this with several other Democrats in the state before, but from your point of view, again, why should Nevada be first in the Democratic primary?
Well, you know, being first in the process matters. It matters not only for the state itself, but it matters for the candidates to really get a perspective from a truly diverse state that truly reflects what the diversity of America looks like. I think that for Nevada, we not only have diversity in our favor, but we also have, you know, a very easily accessible geography. You know, we have, you know, both urban and rural. We have 2 media markets, which, you know, for, you know, candidates is very beneficial to them. It's low cost, you know, and it allows them to get their message out throughout the entire state. We went up there and we made the case as to why we should be first. And I believe that, you know, we really did a really good job, you know, letting everyone know just who Nevada is, what we've done, and what we continue to do in the future.
If Iowa didn't have the issues that it had a couple of years ago, and if Nevada had not changed to being only a primary, would the Democrats in Nevada even be in this position right now?
The goal with this is to make sure that the first state to go up truly reflects the diversity of America. As I said, Nevada looks like America, and it reflects not only our future, but it reflects the entire party. And I'm not going to get into, other states, or you're not going to talk about Iowa, although, there were some issues there. But
it opened the door at least, no? I mean, you have to acknowledge it opened the door slightly.
It certainly didn't hurt. I'm going to say that it certainly didn't hurt. But truly, the goal for us was to just make sure that we went there and we made the case for why Nevada should go first, and why we should, be in that early spot, and why we deserve strong consideration for the first spot on the calendar.
Final question is, I think, just trying to broaden it out beyond the pitch that's already been made by yourself and Senator Rosen and other prominent Democrats in Nevada, is the goal to make sure that from a Democratic standpoint, you have the right candidate for the presidential race in 2024, but also maybe even beforehand now, activating the base, trying to get other members of the Democratic Party or those who are nonpartisan invested now for the races that are happening now. Is that too big of a connection to draw? It's very reasonable to say that because of this early attention, because of the ability for us to connect with candidates and be able to, really excite the base that will provide evidence as to, how a candidate can do across the nation coming to Nevada, in that early window. It's been truly beneficial to us. That is also why it is important for us to make the case to be first, and we have done it well over time. Commissioner, I appreciate the time. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, John.
And again, a final decision expected in August. First, from our 8 News Now I-team, FBI agents have served a search warrant on Nevada's top GOP official. Agents seized the cell phone of State Republican Chairman Michael McDonald. It's part of an investigation into the fake electors scheme initiated at the end of the 2020 presidential election. McDonald's attorney has not responded to our requests for comment. We reached out to him, though, didn't hear back. Similar subpoenas, though, are reportedly being served on Republican officials in other states. The I-team previously reported Justice Department officials are investigating the scheme to create alternate electors in multiple battleground states, a scheme from the Republicans. Nevada GOP members sent phony electoral certificates to the National Archives. That matter is currently being investigated by the House January 6th committee. Republican gubernatorial candidate Joey Gilbert is still contesting his primary loss. Gilbert lost to Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo. However, Gilbert's campaign believes the results are inaccurate. No county or state official, though, has made a similar claim. Gilbert has repeatedly refuted the results of the 2020 presidential election as well. Back in Washington, more public testimony this week from the House Special Committee investigating last year's Capitol Hill attack. Thursday, they focused on former President Trump's effort to pressure his Justice Department into action and overturn the election results. Basil John reports.
He thought the Justice Department had not done enough.
During the 5th hearing of the January 6th committee, former top DOJ officials told the panel former President Donald Trump pushed them to overturn the election.
It was a brazen attempt to use the Justice Department to advance the president's personal political agenda.
Former Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue said the Department of Justice looked into the president's claims of election fraud.
Were any of the allegations he brought up found credible? Did you find any of them credible? No.
Donahue and former acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen told the former president they couldn't change the election results.
How did the president respond to that, sir?
He responded very quickly and said, essentially, that's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm just asking you to do is just say it was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman.
Both top officials said the president wanted someone in charge at the DOJ who would do what he wanted, but neither Donahue or Rosen would go along with his wishes.
The United States Justice Department functions on facts, evidence, and law, and those are not going to change. So you can have whatever leadership you want, but the department's position is not going to change.
Evidence also shows there was an effort by Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Scott Perry to get a new attorney general in position before January 6th. The January 6th hearings will resume after summer recess. Reporting in Washington, I'm Basil John.
A Nevada state senator wants an audit of all state spending under Governor Sisolak's coronavirus emergency declaration. State Senator Scott Hammond asked for the audit on Tuesday. He represents the Centennial Hills area. Hammond wants an investigation into a Nevada COVID testing company. News reports show it collected millions in state dollars, but the tests that it actually provided were deeply flawed. Clark County School District has a lot on its plate. Not enough teachers, disputes between trustees and administrators, and hanging over all of this, reorganization. Back in 2017, a law was passed up in Carson City to decentralize CCSD and give schools more control over money and decisions. So has that actually happened? And could the state step in? This week I spoke with Mark Newbern, Vice President of Nevada's Board of Education.
The previous state superintendent, Steve Canavera, went through a long process to get the district to commit to a set of changes to try to bring it into compliance. Now we're here 5 years down the road. The State Board of Education and the superintendent have been petitioned by principals, members of the community, and teachers union to step in. The complaint is that the reorganization has not fully occurred, the local school precincts don't have the authority that they're supposed to have, and that the district's attempting to re-centralize. The decision on what's right for students no longer solely belongs to the central office. The local school precincts now have a say in that, and they're supposed to get the resources to enforce that. So the battle has been won. It's an immensely complex district, so any reorganization, I mean, this is the biggest reform in a generation, is going to take time. It's going to be complex. The question is the district's heart in it, and have they sort of shortchanged the precincts, not giving them the authority the legislature intended.
Why are you hesitant to think that they really want to do this?
Because I don't think they really want to do this. I mean, I think or at least my view is that they've been dragged kicking and screaming sort of every step of the way. This pulls, I mean, it's a complex district, and pulling that sort of decision-making authority down to the school precinct certainly makes the superintendent's job, who probably already has the most difficult job in the state, more complex. And so there's no real advantage to the central office to do this.
Except that it's law.
Except that it's law.
So if they're not following the law, what could the state do?
Well, what we've done recently is we've enacted some regulations. Part of the reason we're 5 years down the road and they're still not in compliance is there's never been any consequence. And so we've started laying out a set of actions that create a cost for non-compliance.
A penalty.
A penalty. So in increasing steps of severity to try to motivate the district, to show them that we don't want to be here 5 years from now in the same exact position. That you have to take this serious. There's going to be a cost going forward. You need to engage with us and work with us so we can resolve this.
And at some point, potentially, could the state take over CCSD? Receivership?
Yeah, there's a provision for receivership. Now, there's a lot of anger at the district right now, and so people sort of heard that, and they envisioned us charging in like the Marines and taking this administrator's building and throwing everybody into reorganization jail. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability to go in, for a receiver to go in and change some specific school district regulations to come into compliance. So it's a very limited receivership. And the process is really designed so it's very unlikely to happen. What we're attempting to do is pull authority away from another state-sized organization and move it down to the school precincts where the legislature wants that authority and money to be.
But hypothetically, if the whole idea of reorganization is that a local school knows better than the central office, is by extension the central office better at knowing about Clark County than the state?
In the general case, that's true, and that's how we view it.
But in this case?
But in this case, we're required to act in order to enforce the law.
Clark County School District says it is following the reorganization law. In a statement to 8 News Now this week, CCSD says the last couple of compliance items cannot be satisfied without bargaining unit agreement and a clearer understanding of the 85% funding requirement to school budgets. CCSD says we remain focused on student achievement and will continue moving forward to ensure our students receive a high level of education. Still to come here on Politics Now, gun control front and center in Congress this week. We'll look at the changes lawmakers are pushing through.
About switching to the veto.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Buffalo, Uvalde, Philadelphia, Tulsa, just some of the cities that have seen mass shootings in the last month. The surge of these shootings has pushed Congress into action. Thursday, the Senate passed its most far-reaching gun control legislation in decades, even as the Supreme Court ruling rolls some restrictions back. Hannah Brandt reports.
In a major breakthrough moment, Congress is pushing forward a package of gun legislation.
This will become the most significant piece of anti-gun violence legislation Congress has passed in 3 decades.
The package took weeks of bipartisan negotiation between Senators Chris Murphy and John Cornyn. The final legislation will enhance background checks, fund enforcement of state red flag laws, and expand mental health resources.
This bill includes targeted common sense measures to prevent violence and to save lives while respecting our Constitution.
But not everyone agrees. While 15 Senate Republicans voted for the reforms, a majority voted against them, including Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
I agree, do something, but do something that works. Do something that will stop these crimes.
Still, supporters are celebrating this as a bipartisan success. Senator Chuck Schumer says Democrats will keep fighting for stronger gun laws. But for now,
it is a long overdue step in the right direction.
Just hours before the Senate passed that package, the Supreme Court struck down a New York gun law. The court ruled that Americans have the right to carry guns in public for self-defense.
We're hoping that this is going to stop the persecution of lawful and legal gun owners in New York State.
Instead of working to protect our communities, this court has made it even easier for potentially dangerous people to carry concealed handguns in public spaces.
In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
Nevada's Democratic Senate delegation praised the bipartisan measure. In a statement you see there, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto says it will make real progress to reduce violence and keep our communities safe. Senator Jackie Rosen, also a Democrat of course, after decades of inaction in Washington and reducing gun violence, including after the horrific 1 October shooting, she says the Senate has finally broken the logjam and passed the most significant breakthrough on gun safety legislation in nearly 30 years. This week, the Biden administration announced plans to suspend the federal gas tax through the summer. However, any change on the federal level will not affect prices here in Nevada. There's a state law here that says if the federal gas tax goes down, state taxes will increase to make up the difference. However, the Regional Transportation Commission is looking into whether it could lower or suspend the Clark County gas tax. A new bill could make it easier for families to afford their first mortgage. Senator Cortez Masto helped introduce some new legislation on this week. The Affordable Housing Bond Enhancement Act aims to improve mortgage revenue and credit programs. It could open the door for thousands of families to refinance their home and then manage that first mortgage. Still to come here on Politics Now, Clark County officially set some rules for short-term rentals, what it means for communities across southern Nevada. And they can be an eyesore during your commute. When will all those political signs go away? We'll tell you that on
local, now. You're watching Politics Now.
Welcome back. The Nevada State Supreme Court has set new boundaries on how the state can manage groundwater in places with severe drought. A priority doctrine typically grants tenured landowners first rights over water over newer owners. Basically, if you've already got the land first, you get the water first. But this week's ruling lets areas impacted by drought deviate from that rule, a major change since so much of Nevada is affected by drought. Short-term home rentals, Airbnbs, Verbos, for example, well, now they have a concrete set of rules to follow in unincorporated Clark County for the first time. They used to be illegal. Commissioners this week unanimously approved new regulations for those short-term rental properties. The rules, among many, no more than 10 people are allowed in each rental. Properties must be at least 2,500 feet away from a resort, and there must be at least 1,000 feet between the rentals themselves. Last year, the Nevada legislature approved a state law which requires counties to allow short-term rentals. Commissioners say those rules, by the way, might lessen moving forward. This is sort of the first round. Expect them to change as it goes forward. All right, so the primary election, the primary is over. So when are all these signs going to come down? Well, candidates who lost last week in the primary, they have 15 days to clean up their mess. They should be removed by this upcoming Wednesday, and if they're not, candidates can be fined. More Politics Now, right after this on 8 News Now.
Only at your Las Vegas area Hyundai dealer.
Welcome back to Politics Now. Here's a look at what to watch in the weeks ahead. Of course, the major news from Washington, D.C. continues to be the ruling from the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade and the abortion protections on a federal level. So moving forward, we will see how this will impact first the political races, not only nationwide but across Nevada, and what other legal challenges could come. Again, Nevada has this in the Constitution, but it's very different elsewhere in the country. We're also waiting to see if Nevada Democrats will get to pick a presidential candidate first. The last big push from the local DNC is over. A preliminary decision is expected in the next 2 weeks. A final decision from the Democratic National Committee expected in August. This for the 2024 presidential election. That'll do it here on Politics Now. Don't forget all the latest on political news. You can find it at 8newsnow.com. We're back with you once again next Saturday. And as we finish here, a look at the Supreme Court, home of 2 major rulings this week. Again, thank you for watching Politics Now. We'll see you next time.